Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Council of Fans where today we have a really special guest, and that is Auto Dunya. Hello, friend.
Hey, well, I'm sorry, it's a forced habit. I said welcome. uh,
Yes.
it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. You of course invited us to yours, so yeah, we are excited to do this today, and also of all the new Turkish fans in the live chat as well. Welcome to you all. If you of course don't speak or write English, if you want to write Turkish throughout the stream, Ortadunya will be trying to translate and try
Yeah.
talk about your point as much as possible as well, so you don't feel left out. But still, we do have a fragmented council today. So firstly, Ken, hello, my friend.
Hi, as usual. I love
Hello.
being here.
Also, welcome to Talking Tube.
Great to be back. It's always fun doing these.
Good to always have you on. And of course, with Nikki, she unfortunately has COVID, so hopefully she many uh get better soon over to her. And I think she said she's watching it from where she is right now. So hello to you. And also, Penguin, he's also ill as well. So yeah, two absentees due to illness today. So yeah, but we actually have instead, maybe you could say someone even better because we have the dwarf himself, Varking. Hello.
Hello, hello. Good to be here. And I've already seen people pinging me on Discord for not wearing the beard. I will fix this during the stream. I apologize, guys.
If you want to quickly go now and do that while we do all this, then yeah, that's fine. And also behind the scenes, we have Kyle doing all the producing and running it all, etc., etc. So yeah.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Indeed. But today, so we're going to be talking about. So if Carl, do you want to get that House of the Dragon poster on the screen or one of them, because we had the news that House of the Dragon will be premiering in August. Oh, was it? Yeah, I think it was August. And of course, the Rings of Power released September 2nd. And I think first of all, we'll be talking about their marketing strategies, but what Dunya, what do you think has been like so far, like with the marketing around this Rings of Power show?
Are you asking the marketing of Rings of Power or the House of the Dragon?
For Rings of Power, how do you think has been so far? Has it been like, has there been a lot of it? Has there been a
Yeah,
little bit? What do you think?
actually, I'm quite disappointed since the last teaser trailer. They've been so silent, and they've been silent for 5 years. They gave us so many things, a lot of posters, the Vanity Fair interview, then the teaser trailer. It's almost like 1.5 hours, and we haven't heard since. So I'm not quite happy since then.
I think it's safe to say. I think Ken, do you want to actually possibly? Someone said they also really like your headphones, which is a nice thing. But I think I'm sure you know this. Do you want to go a quick overview of Amazon's marketing so far, starting all the way back from the maps and all the releases since?
Yeah, they've done the maps very early on. They've done the teaser photo shortly thereafter. They've done the title reveal and the teaser and a few like articles that go with the teaser, sort of Vanity Fair, and that's it, really. I mean, yeah, it's been incredibly sparse, and I think they actually spoke to Vanity Fair about their kind of secrecy policy about wanting to keep things secret and stuff, which I generally tend to like less in filmmaking and film marketing. But whatever floats their boat, I suppose. But yeah, it's been very sparse.
Personally, I kind of like this approach. I remember watching the Stranger Things season 2, or maybe it was, I think it was season 3 actually. They spoiled quite a lot of what was going to happen in the show just in the trailer. So watching that really took out a chunk of the viewing experience for me. It was still really good in my opinion. Not the best I've ever seen, but it was still really, really good. But that definitely took away from the experience. So I'd much rather Amazon give us too little news and have the show be really, surprising and new and whatnot when it does come out than it be the other way around.
When they released the Hobbit movies, I don't know if you remember this, but they shared the dwarf designs, each of them every day, and it was much more exciting than it is today. I mean, they shared, if I recall correctly, 23 posters. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
they maybe they could spread them a little bit. When I said that I'm not happy with their approach, I don't mean that they need to show us more, but they need to spread it through the time, I think.
And
maybe.
also in
I
the
agree.
meantime,
That's a pretty reasonable approach because they can still like inundate the fans with a ton of stuff like those posters that spoiled basically nothing when it comes to the story. But yeah, it does keep people excited, keeps a lot of buzz around the show.
yeah. Also, a lot of people have been mentioning that Viking has finally put on the helmet as well. So gonna do a quick show of that,
Oh.
or headbutt or something. I'm not sure what you do in the helmet except from that.
When we go to the end, I'll show the hammer.
Oh, that'll be marvelous. But in the meantime, Dunya, are you a big do you know a lot about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, any of that stuff or not?
I'm a big Game of Thrones fan actually, but not the last two seasons. I hated, especially the last season. Probably like the rest of you.
Yeah.
So I'm not so thrilled about the House of the Dragon.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say, however, that House of the Dragon will probably be Amazon's main competitor in this new fantasy shows coming out this year. And do you think it is interesting or means anything? And does anybody know the exact date of by? I'm guessing it's the 24th, but I don't remember exactly. That's near the end of September. Then we've got, of course, Lord of the Rings on September the 2nd. Do you think there's any implications of that or anything at all? What are your main thoughts on that?
You mean the dates are so close to each other?
Yeah, and it will actually run. So House of the Dragon will finish before after Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings will just be there for about 5-ish weeks, and then but House of the Dragon will start and end before Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that they want to be the main competition with the Rings of Power. But I'm not so concerned because we will watch both of them, and it will probably be the same for the House of the Dragon fans.
And I think originally when I was looking at I'd seen the reaction to the House of the Dragon fans, a lot of them thought it would actually be earlier on in the summer or a bit earlier, like a few weeks earlier. But yeah, that is quite an interesting thing about Viking. Do you think in the end for the show it really matters at all, or not really?
I don't think it matters for how many people are going to tune in. I think it really only matters for the people who are going to come on like us, like on YouTube and Twitter and talk about how many people are tuning in, and does it matter when in the end, as long as both shows are doing well in terms of viewership, they're going to get continued, they're going to move on. We'll get back to it, but I personally think that it was a smart marketing decision, but a total cop out, easy mode for multiple scenarios. If it doesn't do good numbers, then they're going to say, well, maybe we shouldn't have dropped it around the same time as the Lord of the Rings series. If it does poorly, if it does great, then they get to say, well, that's why we marketed there, because with Lord of the Rings on Thursdays and Fridays, then people are amped up for fantasy, and then they'll watch ours on Sunday. I just think that if it doesn't do well at all, they'll just blame it on we shouldn't have aired it the same, basically same schedule as the Lord of the Rings series. It was weak.
And Talkative, what do you think of this idea? So we're gonna have Tolkien Fridays and then House of the Dragon Sundays. Do you think it matters that one's on the Friday and one's on the Sunday?
I think they probably will affect each other, but minimally. Because someone mentioned, I don't know exactly where it was, so I just want to say this isn't my idea, but we do live in the age where people just binge a ton of content. They're not necessarily picky. People usually have more than enough time to watch 2 TV shows at once, or if not, then they might not be watching any shows at all. So I don't think it'll really have any, there won't be many conflicts really between the 2 shows. There will be some, of course, but I think overall it's pretty likely that most people are just going to end up watching both. If anything, though, I think the Lord of the Rings show will have a lot more people watching it just because of the reputation of the Lord of the Rings in general.
Yeah.
I'd like to just jump in on that as well. I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about, and I listened to a lot of podcasts, and many people were saying that this is a sign of confidence in the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon production, that it is airing right around the same time as Lord of the Rings. But if they were really that confident in it, why did they do it 2 weeks early? Why not drop it the same week? If you're really that confident in terms of competition, drop it the same week. Have one come out Thursday, one on Sunday. See how the numbers look on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. But 2 weeks early, meh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting point, and I think another thing that I've been seeing recently is that Dunya, I think you said you have watched both, is that this Lord of the Rings show is coming off nearly 10 years or 9-ish years, 8 years, whatever, of not being in Middle Earth, whereas
7, I
this
think.
11, yeah, and then this
7.
7, sorry, and then but the House of the Dragon show is just coming off a failed, an awful final season, and then a bad last 2 seasons. Does that affect how both shows are coming in? Does that give the Rings of Power much more of an easier way through, or does that for House of the Dragon?
Was that a question for me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Do you remember that they I think it was 3 years ago when they had the final season?
Yep.
They were comparing the Battle of Winterfell to Helm's Deep, and when they failed with it, it was a disaster for them. I think people didn't forget that disaster, the final season disaster, and actually most of the people are so happy with the movies, and the reason of the backlash of the Rings of Power teaser trailer is because of that, and we talked about it this Tuesday, as you remember. I think they will face the similar backlash when they got released, but House of the Dragon will. I don't think it will have as bad as Rings of Power, and I don't think so.
Okay, yeah.
And I know we've got a tweet on screen right now. We'll get back to that. Thank you, Carl. But one thing to flip that statement on his head, Ken, if you look at it from this way, this House of the Dragon show isn't in that much of a risky position or a position because they've had such a bad season finale with Game of Thrones. The only way is up. By coming into this Rings of Power show, people will be comparing it to the heights and amazement of Peter Jackson film trilogies, especially The Lord of the Rings. Do you think that could be a bit of a problem or a disadvantage to this show
I think
compared
in a
to
way,
House of the
yes.
Dragon?
In a way, yes. Because House of the Dragon, in a way, it's more of a known quantity. Because, yeah, the last season, several seasons of Game of Thrones, hampered mostly by bad pacing, really, by rushing through the plot too fast. But otherwise, House of the Dragon is poised to have the same kind of, it's the same kind of thing. People
Will George
presumably
R.R. Martin be involved in this show?
It's a good question. I have no idea.
I think
Somebody in the
this is
comments has said House of the Dragon has a lot of source material, though, and the author himself is involved in the show, unlike Rings of Power.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
Whereas Rings of Power is taking something that people know, giving it a new spin that I'm not necessarily sure that everyone is going to like. So
Mhm.
in a way,
Then,
it's
mhm.
yeah. I mean,
And Togtube, are you going to add something quickly?
Yeah, just what Finn said. I think The Lord of the Rings is always going to be a lot more controversial than Game of Thrones, just because Game of Thrones, like, they already have like gratuitous sex and nudity and violence and stuff like that. But The Lord of the Rings, for the most part, it hasn't really had any of that in it already. So if they add any of those elements or any form of politics, then The Lord of the Rings is going to get hated on a whole lot more than Game of Thrones would.
yeah.
And
In that
okay,
way,
now
yes.
to the tweet on the onto the screen. So this from Javi Marcos, a really good friend of the channel. He said he replied to our tweet around House of Dragons versus Lord of the Rings. I said, from a HBO perspective, key is that Lord of the Rings lasts only 1 month, literally 5 weeks. And being a show for a global audience, 11-year-old children as potential targets, they don't fear them in the Emmy race. Lord of the Rings would get the numbers and biggest audience, but not critical appraise. So Varkin, what are your initial thoughts on this? This, I think, from a Game of Thrones content creator as well. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this
I
statement?
mean, I I personally, that's stuff that I have no involvement in. I don't get to determine who's up for awards, or I think if Lord of the Rings of Power is good, it's going to get plenty of critical praise, especially when you consider the fact that based on what we've been told so far, we're going to get a show that you can watch with a younger brother, sister, son, daughter, your mother, father, like family members, because it's not supposed to be anything super mature like Tolkien 2 was talking about earlier, where there's been gratuitous sex and all sorts of crazy language in the Game of Thrones series. So I think if it does well, and I expect it to do pretty well, I think it's going to be up in the running for plenty of awards, probably more than Game of Thrones would be eligible for. Can I, real quick, I hear the comment a lot about how, you know, Game of Thrones is going to take a little bit of a beating or a punishment based on how the final 2 seasons went. And I agree, as a Game of Thrones fan, the final 2 seasons were not good. But this show isn't going to lead us up to those final 2 crappy seasons. If anything, it's kind of bridging the gap from all the stuff before that we don't know and haven't seen on screen. And it would only lead up to the first season, which is quality content that we pretty much all liked and enjoyed and thought was great. It's not going to bridge us to season 7 or 8.
They have an advantage on House of the Dragon. They have this. They have the same copyright, and they can use the similar designs. Maybe they can have some cameos from the Game of Thrones. I don't know the time zone. I mean, the time period they will use in this show. But if they can use same actors somehow, that's a connection. That's a bridge. And people love that, and we saw that on the Mandalorian for Star Wars, for example. Rings of Power can't do that. They don't have the same copyright as the movies.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I've seen the pictures that I've seen of House of the Dragon. It looks like Game of Thrones. Whereas Rings of Power is kind of stuck in this kind of weird limbo where it's kind of like the movies that we've seen, but kind of not. So it's neither fish nor fowl, I guess. And so yeah, it might be a bit weird for a lot of people in that way.
And talk to you if you want to give your final thoughts quickly. And what we'll quickly do is try get some pictures of the Vanity Fair pictures up, and then some of the House of the Dragon ones up. So yeah, 1 second.
Thoughts on what exactly? Because I feel like we've summed everything up pretty well. Lord of the Rings, it's got more potential to go either way, in my opinion. Like, if it does include certain things, it's going to get hated on a lot more than Game of Thrones will. But on the flip side, I think it's probably got more potential to be even better and more popular than Game of Thrones and like even any other TV show or anything that we've seen so far.
Even maybe when it comes to awards, because you think that might,
Ooh.
if both shows become, really popular and, one of the best television out there, do you think we might be seeing increased rivalry between the fandoms when it comes to award season, stuff like that? Oh, Morpho Clarks needs to get the best actor, but something whoever's playing that really blonde woman. But actually, I think they're all blonde. But yeah, some of them. Do you think we'll start to see that?
Maybe, but I still feel like a lot of the people who really like Game of Thrones are also Lord of the Rings fans, and Lord of the Rings usually they kind of tend to prefer. And obviously, this isn't always true, but I remember there was one video where the author of Game of Thrones he made a statement about Aragorn's tax policies and stuff like that, and all the people in the comments were talking about how stupid this is and how basically defending Tolkien's works rather than agreeing with him. So I think just generally, Tolkien's works have a better and more wide population when it comes to fans.
I will say, with regards to awards, I think award ceremonies have, it's kind of funny to call it that way, but kind of adult content bias. I have adult content bias. All things being equal, I will prefer something that's aimed for adult over a family film or a family series. So, and I think awards are generally like that as well. So I think Game of Thrones has a leg up.
There's really a
when it
lot of
comes to
factors like
awards.
that too, like who's got connections with the people, because they're not exactly, the most objective award ceremonies out
Yeah,
there.
sure, but I mean, in general, I actually think it is an objective. Like, it's very relevant. I mean, I think that awards have adult content bias. They prefer stuff that is aimed for adults over family stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
also do.
I think
So, yeah.
linking to that, I think Vark, I think you responded to in chat, but someone said, I think earlier, um, they'll receive more views if there's more violence and explicit stuff. Sex sells, man. Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it all evens out. If you miss out on being able to target children, but you can get more adults to tune in, then that's still a rating number. It's still a number. I think everything evens out in the end. I believe that both shows are going to get great views, number count. I think that in terms of quality, though, it's whatever one tells a better story, start to finish in season one. That's going to be the one that racks up the awards, and I think that's what most people are looking forward to. Is if a good story is told in Rings of Power or Game of Thrones, that's going to be the one that people kind of champion as their favorite, at least through
Yeah,
season one.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And TV awards aren't quite as kind of stuck up as cinema awards, where you really have to mostly be a period drama to win anything major. Whereas on TV, genre shows like Game of Thrones have won,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And Morten, yeah, if while we get set up on the next talking point, if there is any, I know we have a lot of Turkish fans here today, so if there's any comments that are in Turkish, if you want to read some of them out, we can discuss them in the meantime, then yeah, feel free to. I think I've seen some.
Yeah, someone asked the question I asked to you in our stream. I don't know if we should talk about it again, but they are asking if you think they are not following lore of Tolkien in the Rings of Power. What do you, yeah, do you think that they are going to be loyal to Tolkien's lore?
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
what
that
they're
so
asking.
mainly if they're worries of if this might not stick true to Tolkien's works.
Yeah.
I think, of course, answer this is always going to have some nuance because, of course, we're 5, 6 months out, so we can't give a distinct answer as to whether it will stay true. And of course, some of the leaks can weigh it one way or the other. I think really, I think it comes down to the rights and how much Amazon can possibly stick to the lore, because with the appendices, which they keep on saying is the only thing they have rights to, it's going to be really hard to stick, word for word if there isn't that much in there. Um, does anybody have any other thoughts if they want to put on that?
Well, yeah, because we also do know that Amazon has included things in the series outside of the appendices, which is confusing a lot of people. For instance, Penguin, and this was like a year ago, pointed out, or maybe Hin, this was you, and I've noticed some things like this as well. The description of Numenor is pretty much only really in the Unfinished Tales, which Amazon doesn't have the rights to. So at the very least, Amazon can ask the Tolkien estate, just on a case-by-case basis, pretty much, if they can include other things. So obviously, they've got fairly free reign if they want to include other things. I don't think the Tolkien estate would say no to many of these things, just from what we know about them so far. Although, again, that could kind of go either way because we really don't know that much about them. But Simon Tolkien does. He has said something about adaptations and that they should be independent from the books. So that also speaks a lot to how accurate it's going to be to the books, because I think a lot of people speculate that he's the head of the Tolkien estate, or at least he's up there, one of the people controlling it
maybe
It's
even
currently.
both.
it's
Um,
co-managed by like 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, I don't think it's really going to be that accurate. Shippy said that it had to stay accurate to the main shape of the Second Age, but beyond that, I would not expect it to stay very accurate at all. So
Yeah,
Sauron is like driven back
I'm
into
starting to
Eriador
think
and
the
stuff like
same.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's really not many
Yes,
leaks that we've
yeah.
gotten that seem to indicate that it is going to be that accurate to the show. Of course, there's a couple, but generally it's not going to be that accurate aside from like a very rough outline of the original story, which in this case is actually an outline in and of itself.
Yeah, I just want to add something really, really quick to that point, and it comes from one of the Vanity Fair interviews with the showrunners where they explicitly said that they're treating the first season as like a world building and character building season. So that's why we're seeing all these big events that aren't lore specific events, but I think we can expect to see, like the forging and the War of the Elves and Sauron and, the downfall and things like that in later seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they'll stick to the lore.
Yeah, I'm sure we will see those things, but like I said, beyond exactly like what events we're gonna see, I don't think we should expect it to be all that accurate.
And
And I always hazard against the things that artists say they do and the things they actually do are often very different things. Not because they're duplicitous, but just because of the way we kind of wired. You try to explain things. It's so from their statements to Vanity Fair, it would seem like season one would be a lot of table setting and not actually a lot of driving the plot forward. I'm not actually sure that really is the case. I don't think we'll get into any super major events from Tolkien's chronology at this point, but at the same time, I do feel that in spite of that statement, we'll get a feeling of movement of plot because we know of events that are pretty pertinent to the overall story. Basically, the resurgence of Sauron and stuff. And also, the same I would say is true towards their comment of, oh, this is totally, appropriate for 11-year-olds. I think it's a little bit gussied up. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm
yeah,
just always be careful not to take the things that artists say they will do or have done too much at face value. Just look at the work of art itself and glean from it rather than from statements about it.
yeah, and I
And
think
you go ahead.
I was
that's
gonna wrap up. So go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, and you've seen what the Halo show's done too, which is say, no, we're not going to stay accurate to the games. And I think there's a few distinct mistakes that Amazon has made, or at least one, if you know what I'm talking about, the
There's a
super fans
couple.
thing. Yeah, there's a good few very clear mistakes, which I think everyone can agree Amazon's PR department made. And I think just straight up saying, no, it's not going to be accurate to the books is just going to make another big controversy. There's going to be dozens of videos. Like Neurotic is going to make a video about it. The Courtney's going to make a video about it. There's a ton of other people, smaller creators. I could name a few, but I'm not going to, are going to make videos about that, get 100,000 views, and start getting really popular, and then they're going to get a ton of views, and there's like a whole spiral effect. So if they did say that, that would very much hurt the show and just hurt the reception of it and everything like that.
Is there any final points here, thoughts?
I would just say that if you think it's going to be a 1-for-1 adaptation of the books and things are going to be accurate in that regard, the consolidation of the timeline is going to prevent that. Yeah, the overarching big major plot points, they need to be consistent with those, but how you get from point A to point B, they do have the ability to change things up here and there with approval from the Tolkien estate itself. But I mean, when you look at the Second Age material, it's hard to make a 5-season show off of like 8.5 minutes worth of reading. There's piecemeal stuff that has been pointed out by others. They are using things that aren't exactly, in the appendices. They're using things from here and there and different screenshots and stuff that they've shared. So they at least have a good talking relationship with the Tolkien estate and say, hey, we don't explicitly have the rights to this, but can we use it? And then it looks like at least a couple times they've been like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we know from interviews with the executives that the Tolkien estate had been, let's say, pragmatic about the whole thing. Yeah. I will say again, the most important thing for me is that not that it's good talking, but that it's good television. That's, I think, the really crucial thing, that it is good television first and foremost.
And I think
they've yet to prove.
This discussion, of course, can easily be for another day, but we'll move on to our original point, which is going to be this poster on screen. Because another comparison that we can do between House of the Dragon and the Wheel of not the Wheel of Time, we'll go into that later, and with the Rings Power, is that they're both months out. Lord of the Rings did theirs first with Vanity Fair, where they dropped a bunch of posters. House of the Dragon a few days ago dropped a bunch of posters, and I think the reaction to most of the posters by fans have been fairly positive. But I think due to Lord of the Rings, it's been a bit different, a bit more mixed. First of all, Game of Thrones has much of a more realistic setting and style, which fans are used to, and the fact that it is same continuity makes it a lot easier. So automatically, House of Dragons always going to gain more points on that. But Dunya, what are your thoughts overall of the Vanity Fair picture? Because some people really like them, some people thought it was a mixed reaction. What are your overall thoughts?
Are you asking the Vanity Fair posters?
Yeah, so we've got the Galadriel one on screen. The one that's like, the picture of Aronde, Ismail Cordova's character. You got Galadriel with the fire explosion in the background. You've got the Robert and Mayo with as Elrond. All those ones.
Yeah, it was so chaotic in Turkey after they released these photos. Some people said Galadriel can't be a fighter. Why is she wearing an armor? And the female dwarf without beard and a black elf thing, and so many mayhem, so many chaotic comments, and I think but I think it prepared people for the teaser trailer, so there wasn't any surprises left. What was your question again about the Vanity Fair?
In regards to the actual pictures themselves, like, were they good pictures? Did Amazon choose the right ones? Did they look good? Did the reaction, like some of the costumes, etc.?
I actually I think I would pick other pictures for promoting this TV series. I would pick pictures that give movie feeling. I mean, Peter Jackson's movies. The similar feeling is so crucial for this project to be successful, because people tend to love those designs, those feeling, and even the Hobbit series had some kind of negative reactions because of lacking that feeling. So I don't think the Vanity Fair is a success.
Any similar points or different points to that or reactions to the Vanity Fair pictures? The pictures, as in the posters themselves, as opposed to all the external things that came along with it.
I think they're solid shots overall, but I think there was a lot of comments around that time about that. A lot of these look very clean. They don't look very much lived in. Like it's hard to tell because they're just still images. But like when you look at that one of Elrond, it's a very clean image, other than whatever is floating around.
I think we got used to the film grain, that old feeling. We don't have that in these pictures, and that's why people didn't care
I
for them.
mean, yeah, but it's as Viking said, it's a still picture. It's not it. None of those shots
Yeah, I know,
are
I know.
taken from the camera with which the show is filmed. They're very large format still photographs. But even otherwise, I think the kind of fascination with film grain is a little bit. I mean, like it's like like Christopher Nolan shoots on IMAX all the time, and that's a very clean format, and nobody accuses his movies of being too clean. It's kind of funny
Mm-hmm.
as a critique, and I also don't love really lived in production design, but it's not necessarily the only yardstick by which production design is measured. There are a lot of movies with very pristine aesthetics that look great on screen.
I
And
think
yeah,
it's a good comparison is that how a Game of Thrones, which is going to be House of the Dragons, I think I don't know the word for it, but it's going to be set in 200 years before. Game of Thrones basically coined the live-in aspect of costumes and production designs.
they
And I
did it.
remember
Yeah, they did it
once
well.
we come on to later on, The Witcher, that first season got grilled for the how clean and perfect it looked as well. So yeah, that'd be quite
Yeah.
interesting. And for me, with the problem with me for this image though was that I think it maybe came more to the choice. I think what Dunia put forward is that the choice of pictures Amazon used because Elrond at first glance looks really really weird here. I don't want to say
It's the
awful
hair.
because that's mean. Yeah, but mostly the hair and the background is. But then, of course, when we see him in the trailer with that shot, it looks much, much better. But from afar, I
Elrond looks
think,
much better in
yeah,
that shot
I
in the
think,
Yeah.
yeah,
trailer. Arondir still
oh,
doesn't.
yeah. And we'll get
The
Owen
short
there.
hair for elves is very weird for me.
Yeah. And
Very weird.
Carl, if you could get Owen there up next as well. And I think talk to you. I think I'm not sure if it was you or someone else made a good point that literally in this shot looks like Owen has his hair gelled back or something. It just
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked about that a little bit. It just uh, it's kind of weird when you're watching something like Excalibur. That's another example of this, which takes place in medieval times, but someone's got like a mohawk and really slicked back gelled hair. It just kind of out of pocket a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I'm very concerned not with the hairstyle so much, although I don't like it, but I'm concerned about some of these, as well as shots from the trailer. To me, have a kind of very high fantasy kind of feeling, which troubles me. Like too much armor, too much like okay, what Peter Jackson called once a heavy metal aesthetic, which was the aesthetic that fantasy cinema has had in the years prior to his films. It worries me that we will see a return to that aesthetic in this tremendously. So yeah, in that way, I'm very mixed on the I'm mixed on the on this for precisely this reason.
and I think yeah maybe that's partly down to the reaction, but I think the fact that with hairstyles evoking? Do you think maybe that's potentially due to Amazon wanting to tread their own path and be distinct from the Peter Jackson film trilogy? So, the showrunners have decided we need to do this in order to, to go a different path, but to show that we are going a different path with this show.
Well, I think that's certainly part of it. And I think some of the reaction to how these characters look is because Peter Jackson in his films did such a great job of making elves and some of the humans look very, very iconic. As we're kind of talking about things that haven't gone well with Amazon's marketing, something that has gone great is that the overwhelming majority of everything that they've shown from the dwarves, outside
Yes,
of
yes.
Disa not having a full blown beard, the outfits, the hair, the beard on Durin, the background, everything that happened in the
I
trailer with the dwarves, all of those were getting heavy praise. And I think that's because Peter Jackson himself, apologies for saying this, didn't do such a great job with the dwarves. It was very
Yeah.
hit or miss from scene to scene with them. So there's room for people to accept a possibility that there could be better dwarves in this show. But it's hard because the elves were so great in the Lord of the Rings films.
And
Absolutely, because in the
um,
Lord of the Rings, they were just blundering, drunk Irish and Scottish people. And hopefully here we're going to see a lot of their culture. It really does look like we are going to see a lot of that, like with the rock breaking contest. Although that's still kind of on par with what we've seen of dwarves so far. Not in a bad
Mm.
way, though.
And I think Varkin, of course, the man has a dwarven helmet on. He's dressed up as one, so we have gotten. I think the best thing Amazon did from these poster releases was that picture of Owain Arthur as during the fourth. I think this can be a 1-2 minute time just to praise about this photo.
I mean, you won't be able to see it, but I got goosebumps again just from Kyle pulling up the image on screen. Like when I
It looks
look
good.
at him, I am so ready to see more. Even the image of when you look at the footage from the trailer of the rock breaking contest, the dwarves in the background, even they were dressed great, long beards, like the scene, the setting, everything about it. The picture of Elrond with his head kind of down because he lost the rock breaking contest, as he should. But in the background, even though they're blurred, you can see like the dwarves clinking their mugs together to celebrate and laugh at Elrond. Everything there makes me want to see more of the dwarven content.
I'll also just add really, really
Yeah.
quick that this particular image out of them all looks like it could have been plucked right out of an episode, right? Like the lighting is that like that it's almost cinematic looking, whereas the rest of them do look more behind the scenes. This looks like it's almost color
Yes.
treated in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
This image looks like someone who was like, "Yo, Durin," and he turned his head and they snapped a picture. Where if you look at the Elrond one, they were like, "Hey, we're gonna walk you out to a field where you might have issues with allergies. Sit here cross-legged and look this way, and we're gonna take it with perfect lighting." That's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, and the Galadriel one too, even though it seems to be from a scene, it's a bit too controlled in the way that it's composed and the very, very shallow depth of field. Yeah. Whereas this
Yeah.
one, but I will say, I actually think that the reason why this shot is successful is that we see it and we're like, oh, dwarf, ginger beard. There's geometric design motifs on his chest. Like we like it because this one does look familiar and does look like stuff we've seen before. Whereas Elrond with a mullet, not so much, like
Yeah.
even though that one is okay by my standard, but like
Mhm.
Arondir with his ridiculously short hair looks like a tall hobbit, not so much, like those sorts of things.
Aronde
Uh,
looks like he's straight just come out of a barbershop or something. Still, it's
I don't
like
know, the short haired elves, it's very petty, I know, but to me it's weird. I can't, a part of my mind is unwilling to accept it.
and
When
I
I see
think
the image of a Rondir, what stands out to me isn't him; it's the armor that he's wearing.
The
It's
armor I
the
think is really
Is
cool.
that a Tom Bombadil? Is that a Gandalf? Is that a Treebeard Ent type character? What is on his chest? That's what stands out when I look at the photo of him.
I like
Mhm.
the armor. I think just the hairdo is weird for me. And it's true, like in the trailer, there's Finrod's in the trailer, and he really looks like a tall hobbit to me. So you know, I don't know. To me, it's weird. But beyond just small things like the haircuts, like again, just it being too high fantasy is something that worries me.
Yeah. And I think Kyle will be doing this now, getting up. What we're going to do now, not a more of a comparison, but looking at the potentially different production and aesthetic styles House of the Dragon and Rings of Power will have. And I think what do need to start off with you. If you can't see it on screen right now, it's in the Kyle tab here. What do you think? Do you think actually overall the pictures House of the Dragon released? Do you think they chose better pictures and overall they were better or worse than the Rings of Power?
I
Uh,
guess. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No.
I was gonna
You
say, to me, just because maybe it's recency bias of reliving the Lord of the Rings Vanity Fair pictures, but when I look at these images that they had on Twitter, I think they suffer from the same thing that we've been talking about here, but the expectations are different. People hadn't seen Lord of the Rings stuff in so long, so anything being a little bit different feels off. And again, they look like a lot of these shots were taken just to be shots. Maybe they're not even in the show. When I look at the House of the Dragon images, I think there were maybe two where I felt like, oh, this is a cool shot that I could see on screen, but there's a lot of it where it looks like they're taking photos to take photos to me.
And I think the first one that should be on screen right now is the one of King something, King Viserys, I think. Honestly, I have no clue about this period, about
Yeah, me
the
neither.
history. Yeah, history of. Okay, does anybody here
Why
understand?
why is his drink so far away?
Maybe it's not his drink.
Maybe yeah. I think that is his drink.
Yeah.
It's
Someone else.
forced
Maybe he's
perspective.
looking at the.
That picture for me is fine. I've seen a bunch of their pictures, and I think they're also a mixed bag. Some of them look very nice, others not so much. It's in the nature of things.
Do you think compare? I'm Kyle. I'm sorry. You are the bloody wizard. But is it ever possible if you can have two on at the same time? Just give us a yes or no now, if that's possible.
No.
I'm gonna go with no.
Okay, that's fine. No, sorry, that was just off the top of my head anyway. So yeah, just plopped it to my head now because the idea was that, or maybe could we switch between maybe some Lord of the Rings and some House of the Dragon ones to compare, the high fantasy aspect. Sorry, as you can tell, chat, Carl, he's an excellent at all this. But I think the difference, and Ken, you pointed earlier, and Ortinia, what are your thoughts on that? House of the Dragon posters, they seem more grounded, more realistic, not as high fantasy. But then, whereas if you go look at, that Elwood poster, just is like a light shining in your face. It's so bright, it's so vibrant. And do you think once we come to September and on Fridays we have Lord of the Rings, on Sundays we have Game of Thrones, some people on Fridays you'll be going to this high fantasy world, we're going to the lovely Linden forests, we're seeing this and that. And then meanwhile, in on Sundays you're going this more grounded Machiavellian setting, etc.
Yeah. I mean, House of the Dragon will be the main competition, but I think it's hardly fantasy. When I watch Game of Thrones, I feel like I'm watching real life with uh, corrupt people undermining each other and gossips. A lot of real life thing with some fantasy sauce on it. But when I watch or read the Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, etc., it's like mythology. That's why I don't I think people will get different feeling from each of them and maybe appreciate that and enjoy both of them. Uh, the promo photos are better, but in the House of the Dragon, I think the promo photos are better.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I think talk to you, but we haven't got back to you in a while, so we'll get to you in a second. But Hen, as opposed to how it looks. You mentioned it earlier, the high fantasy we're gonna get with Lord of the Rings. The colorfulness of these shots compared to the grounded reality that these
Yeah,
Game
I'm
of
not
Thrones
thinking the
shots are evoking.
colorfulness necessarily, but yeah, okay.
And I think um, alongside this, I think the next point which someone's already hinted to in chat, someone said I can never say his name, Adi Konosidine. I've never can anybody say his
Send it on
surname?
chat. I'll try and read it.
We'll do that in a bit. Do you think I think Amazon The Lord of the Rings the Rings of Power lacks is that star actor, because we'll go to in a second with The Witcher of Henry Cavill and Paddy Considine along with Matt Smith are quite big actors. So do you think that's a problem, or is it actually an advantage for Amazon?
No, yeah, I don't think that's an issue. I like
I was for talking to you,
having.
but go ahead.
Okay, talking to you. You do you.
Sorry, could you repeat that question? I've been having connection issues.
So basically, long story short, do you think Amazon suffers from not having a major actor as opposed to The Witcher and basically potentially House of the Dragon and even Wheel of Time to some extent as well? Or will it be an advantage to them?
I don't know. I'm sure there'd be some small advantage to having a really popular actor in it, but I don't think they ultimately need that. They've already got the name of the Lord of the Rings, so having someone like, I don't know, Russell Crowe in it, sure, that's gonna help, but it's already a major production, so I feel like that'd be overkill. They don't really need a big actor. As for Game of Thrones, I'm not really sure. I don't know all that much about Game of Thrones. I feel like, obviously, it's still a benefit, but ultimately, it's inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think the Rings of Power has some actors that Game of Thrones doesn't really, the prequel at least, doesn't really have many really big names.
You say
Um,
that, but if you have, I think
Matt
his name is
Smith,
Matt
I mean,
Smith,
like, yeah.
his co-designer. Can't say
You know
surname.
what? It doesn't have actors in that tier of like the elder statesman kind of actor. That's what it doesn't have.
Hmm.
Rings of Power
But the
does.
thing is,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Actually,
have a
The
lot of
Witcher
big
and the
names.
others don't either. Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of big names in it because it is a big name. It's like, it's Game of Thrones. It's already madly popular.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And
It
I
doesn't.
go ahead.
What was uh, line from Kingdom of Heaven? How can we defend Jerusalem without knights? Well, apparently you can't make a Middle Earth film or show without knights because whereas Game of Thrones, sure enough, you can.
And I think Varkin, you are someone who has I think read the and played the games of The Witcher. How has involvement of Henry Cavill increased or affected The Witcher show and its popularity and success?
Well, I think you were going to have the book readers and the video game fanatics who were going to tune in anyway just to see what it was about. Henry Cavill amongst the nerd community is a top tier guy. Like he's constantly posting books. He talks about a lot of the different fantasy series that are out there. He has Warhammer figures. He plays World of Warcraft. He's a big gamer. He's played all the games. He's read all the books himself. I think that only gets you so far, and I think it helps the initial season one bump early on because people want to tune in to see, what is Henry Cavill doing now? I want to see Superman with, white hair and a sword. And he doesn't look like how I read Geralt to appear in the books. And he doesn't look how Geralt appears in the video games. But I think sometimes when you have an actor like him and he studied for the role, and I'm sure he auditioned great, you put him in there and he's going to get viewers on. So I think that does help them there early, but like others were saying, Lord of the Rings is the big actor. That name itself is going to bring so many views, clicks, and higher expectations because of what we've gotten in the past. Where I don't think Lord of the Rings necessarily needs it. Matt Smith in the Game of Thrones picture, House of the Dragon, kind of looks like Geralt from the video games and the books more than Henry Cavill does.
And Dunya, what are your thoughts on Amazon not having a big name actor to that extent?
I agree with Working. The Lord of the Rings name is the big actor there and the main attraction to the show. So at least for the first season, they don't need any big actors.
Yeah.
Indeed, and I think that, yeah, that does make sense. I do truly think that you see Lord of the Rings, you see that logo and the name written, people are going to know what it is. And I think you've said this quite a bit before. Do you want to compare it to, before even the Lord of the Rings film trilogy? What big names did they have at the time? I know you go on about the Arwen
Tyler.
actress being big at, yeah, Japan or whatever, but yeah, go through that quickly.
Lord of the Rings didn't. You're right. They didn't try to cast really big actors. The studio did, but the director certainly didn't. But at the same time, they did got Liv Tyler, whom New Line was very confident will attract views, especially overseas, but also in the US. So have that, and so yeah, sure, they did have some. It wasn't a cast of total like unknowns, kind of like yeah, yeah. At the same time, yeah, it did have some. There was some name recognition in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Was
Hmm
Liv Tyler.
yeah.
And also, firstly, hello to Fentany in chat and someone, good friend of the channel, and also, he says Henry Cavill is a huge deal. The name, in fact, that he's a big nerd who loves the series, indeed. And also, someone also, I believe, Hugel Blitz mentioned the Daggle Braggle lag, and I think we're gonna potentially. That just reminded me of this scene that we have on the trailer. And if you want to talk about things, from what Amazon have revealed so far, which is exciting, talking to you, it is this scene, and of course, Game of Thrones. You had, I think, not the Battle of Winterfell, which was as Otodunia mentioned, quite awful. But of course, Nick, was it the Battle of the somethings? I forgot. Battle of, I think the one in like the sixth season.
I love the bastards.
Yes, that's the one, Battle of the Bastards. That was a really good show. These shows will
Yeah.
definitely have battles. Be interesting to see. I'm talking to you. Do you think the strength Amazon have due to their production, the production costs and budget? Like, look at this battle, for example, happening on screen. Is that might give Lord Rings of Power an edge potentially?
Absolutely. Like, part of the reason I think Marvel movies are so popular, even though the storylines aren't always the best. I saw Morbius, I think that's what it's called, yesterday, actually, and it was pretty good. The graphics were amazing. I mean, it's a Marvel movie. That's like one of the big sells. They've got fantastic editing. Everyone knows it, and that's one of the main attractions because no matter what you see, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to be awesome. Everything's going to look
Yeah,
very realistic and flashy. Yeah, they have made some mistakes. But generally, yes, that helps quite a lot. And if nothing else, I think the production quality is going to be mediocre. It's probably going to be way above mediocre, like on the level of Marvel. But even if it's just average, kind of middle, not too impressive or anything, that would be fine. At least they're not going to get trash talked online for it. Obviously, that's something that a lot of people are looking for if like scenes are corny and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And Varkin, do you think maybe we'll see a battle with dwarves in it? That you could literally, from the face cam right now, just jump right into that battle.
I I think that they have a lot of money. They have access to a lot of funds, but they got to budget properly and not do everything super early on in the early season. But yeah, there's no reason we shouldn't have epic battles with many dwarves outside of, we don't need like a dwarven army to come from the hills while like 10 dwarves are standing on top of a broken castle, not coming out and fighting, playing a very sissified role. Uh, but like Tolkien 2 was saying, the amount of money that they have and the team that is working on this, the base for how good this should look graphically, including large battles, my expectations for them are very, very high. again, the time that they're putting into it, the money that they're putting into it, they know what the expectation is. They've seen all the comments online. I think they're going to absolutely blow it out of the water when it comes to their graphics and their CGI.
And I just think, also, do you think overall the budget comparison will give Amazon's Lord of the Rings that edge? But people do
I'm
say
sorry,
the same.
you were breaking out. Could you repeat that?
Saying, do you think overall the budget differences between the two shows will give Amazon's lower edge? But people do say that even though it is going to have a big budget, that doesn't mean good writing and a good story in itself. It might look good, but it might not. Um, narrative might not be good and might not act out good. Do you think? How do you think the budget can be positive and negative for Amazon?
I think budget doesn't mean anything. We saw that in the last season of Game of Thrones. They had a huge budget as well, but they had good CGI, good costume, and everything. But the writing was horrible. The story was horrible, and it ruined the last season and the previous season with that. So, budget is a plus, but it's not everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
because some people said that Game of Thrones early seasons were, of course, better because less budget, but better writing in the storytelling, etc. Do you think that could be? Do you think? Actually, here's a good final question. Going into this right now, who do you think is the underdog between the Rings of Power and the House of the Dragon? I'll start off with Hen, and we'll go down.
Who's the underdog? That's a
A
good
really
question.
hard question. Yeah, it's quite a hard question.
Yeah,
Go
it is
ahead.
a hard question. I
And I'm not
actually
gonna.
think in some ways it is the Ring of Power. I actually expect both shows to do very well commercially. I'm kind of looking at it from the point of view of their artistic merit. And I think Rings of Power has more to live up to. It's much more kind of out there in a way. It's less of an own quantity, as I said. Um, there's more opportunities, I think, for things to go wrong in Rings of Power than there are in Game of Thrones, in House of the Dragon, if that makes sense. I think I do expect it to do commercially well. As for how much I would like it, that's a different question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Falcon Tube.
Sorry, I didn't hear that question. Could you repeat that again?
Out
Again.
of Rings of Power and House of the Dragon, who is the underdog?
Oh, definitely House of Dragon, because the Lord of the Rings is just generally a little bit bigger, especially because the last two seasons of Game of Thrones that really hurt the reputation of the series. Then again, the Lord of the Rings on Prime has a lot of controversy, just with this show in particular, with like quite a few different things. So that's also it might affect it negatively, but at the same time, when someone is having all these videos made about them and that stuff, it does also boost them. Like if you look at all the people commenting, "Evil does not create; it can only corrupt," or whatever the quote is, the fake quote is, because that's not even Tolkien. That stuff is literally just boosting the trailer video, meaning that more people are gonna see it. And their recommended feeds and stuff like that. The video actually got on trending partially because of that. So I think House of the Dragon is still kind of the underdog, but the Rings of Power does have a few things going against it.
I know, Carl, you have been behind the scenes, but do you want to give your thoughts on that? Okay, Ortodenia?
I think House of the Dragon is the underdog, and I completely agree with Tolkien too on his points.
Cool, and finally, Varking.
I actually think Rings of Power is the underdog here. I think just due to recency bias alone, we know Game of Thrones did tons of amazing numbers on television. Yes, Lord of the Rings has done great in theater and on DVD, but this will be the first time we've seen it as a television show. And I think that, as Hen said, there's a lot more room for them to mess this up than House of the Dragon, because that is grounded in much more reality than high fantasy. And some of this looks like fantasy, and some of Rings of Power looks like high fantasy. So I think that there's a lot more to prove, which makes them more of the underdog, Rings of Power.
Indeed. And now away from all this Pokemon House of the Dragon and back to Lord of the Rings now and Rings of Power. What do you guys think we will see next? What do you want to see next at Autodunia? Released by Amazon.
A better trailer with more Middle Earth feeling in it, and
Do you think? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you
hopefully,
think Middle Earth
hopefully,
feeling equals Howard
go on.
Shore?
Yeah, better music, possibly
Yes.
Howard Shore's music, and um, I really hope that that trailer would shut some people up about all the whining,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the music is the major problem. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the music is the thing people do want to see. I know Carl did not speak. So I think one thing we haven't seen yet is Numenor that much, and that's what I'm really banking on,
Yeah.
which will make the show a success. Is Numenor. So well, I think because it's something different compared to like anything in television. Because with Middle Earth, everybody knows about um elves, the dwarves,
People don't
stuff
know
like that.
about Linden.
Yeah, no,
Never
but the
seen Linden
yeah,
before.
the concept.
I'm
Well, on
just
screen.
very
Seafaring,
I
seafaring,
don't
and all
think.
that.
I think
Yeah, well,
looking at Numenor as the MVP of the show, I think is a mistake.
I think I disagree. I think there's a reason why we haven't seen anything from it yet. I think it's
Yeah.
the centerpiece of the show, 100%.
what time?
I disagree. I think it's very clear that Galadriel and Elrond as characters are the centerpiece of the show. But
Doesn't make them the MVP.
But Galadriel also goes to Numenor, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
that very
sure.
good point.
most of
very
her
good.
arc's going to be there.
I don't
And the
know.
reason why I say that is mainly because when average viewers are coming back from watching Lord of the Rings, watching Game of Thrones for a few years, or been watching historical shows, I know. Me Varking like The Last Kingdom, really good show. Um, they're come back to yes, Linden, the elves. They've seen Elven Forest before. They've looked at Rivendell. Oh, they've seen they've seen men, but not at the peak of their power. As Gilioth is basically ruined at that point when we see it in the films. Same with the dwarves. I know, yeah, we've seen Erebor at his peak a bit and stuff like that, but with men having, I think, even compared to television stuff in general, has its own kingdom of men, height at their power. We have these court politics happening as well. The seafaring that Carl mentioned gives another aspect, an edge to this show, which I don't think, and I genuinely do think so. The concept and idea of Newman on the Calibeth is one of Tolkien's best ideas. Even before this show came out, or the second age was even thought, I still thought that it's a really gripping tale, or mostly the end of it, but from 3,300 onwards, of course.
Yeah.
I think that is the real thing there. And I think what Carl's mentioning earlier is that maybe that's what they've got up their sleeve right now, kinda.
I think so.
Yes.
I think the downfall is really like kind of the penultimate event of the whole framework of the story, right?
And someone's asked, Steve has asked if there's a dialect coach on this. There is a dialect coach on this. So I've forgotten the name off the top of my head. I follow them on Instagram. I've forgotten their name. Someone said the soundtrack was awful in the teaser. I think
Yeah,
you
but that's
can
just
get
trailer music.
it's truly music. It is average run of the mill trailer music that they've contracted for that.
Yeah, there's
But
actually a video I saw on it basically saying that the trailer usually gets released before all the music is scored. So it's just a really rudimentary sample because they don't have the music made because the music always depends on what kind of scene it is. So they're not going to make all the music and then in some love scene, we've only got a action scene song. So that really isn't something to be talking about at
Yeah, and
this
really,
moment.
it's not
I don't think that's fair.
super common for trailers to be scored with music from the show or the movie.
Yeah, unless it's like a Marvel movie and, they're playing the Avengers theme because that's literally all they need to do to get people hyped up.
Yeah, but they're not playing the Avengers theme from the movie. They're usually playing a trailer version, very souped up kind
Yeah.
of trailery version of it. It's the
True.
same here. It's the same with really most trailers. Most Middle-earth trailers
Yeah.
don't have Middle-earth music.
We had some
They
hints
don't.
of it in this one, but I think for the most part it was fairly generic.
In the title reveal one, that was at the start. It was a nice hint there as well. And
Yeah.
but I
Mhm.
think Barking, it's time you to get that damn hammer out. Do you want to go and do that
Or it was.
quickly? For us, we have to see this. And basically, I think Amazon totally need to cast Varking as a dwarf. We need Nikki and Varking going on the show next year. I think
This thing is heavy. It's no joke.
I think for me, your video's not even loading, so I can't even see it. But yeah, I'll let you take it away for the next 30 seconds.
I mean, with this hammer, it hits harder than Will Smith did Chris Rock. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Think it'd be interesting to see if we do see a dwarven hammer. Actually, we will see it in the rock breaking contest, I suppose.
I wondered if it'll be similar to this.
Maybe we should recreate our own rock breaking contest.
He was supposed to have a red axe in the movie, and then they CGI'd the hammer in. But then they made one in real life, so I bought it.
Ah,
Yeah, they
That's
had an
awesome.
axe, and then they switched the axe for a hammer, and
yeah.
they started with an axe.
But I think it's been a really, really interesting stream today. We discussed a lot today, I feel like. And I think big thank you to Dunia for coming on.
Yeah,
Really
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a
And if
question before you finish. Yesterday you sent a tweet, and I'm wondering if it's a joke or
it's not
You-
a
you-
joke. Not a
uh,
joke.
Not a joke.
the tweet about Aronder and Bronwyn.
It's not
It's
about around there, bro.
not about Rondim. It's hinting that there might be another. I know people got up and made up relationship.
Hopefully not Galadriel.
It's not Galadriel and Halbrand. It's something else. But then we'll have to wait and see how that goes out. There's
Yeah,
no.
sure.
Also, of course, there is no second aid show this week because we won 100%. Just also into rock music song. But we want 100% make sure that that leak is true before we release it, so there won't be a second
Yeah.
aid show this week. But yeah, we will hopefully have news on that too. But that's basically hinting that there might be more relationships made up by Amazon in this show. But that's as again, Otudunia, links in the description below. I believe it's to your Twitter, but of course you can check out their YouTube channel, their website as well. Everything's there. Yeah, thank you again, my friend, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We also, of course, thank you to Hen.
As always, it's I have a lot of. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Also, thank you to Talking Tube, who's also links are in the description below to his YouTube channel.
Yeah, always great to be here.
Also, of course, behind the scenes, thank you to Carl for running all of this. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Thank you finally to Varkin for filling in for and being involved for this one with your lovely acts.
Thank you for having me on. And but Nikki, if you're watching, I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah,
Oh,
same
yeah.
here.
Oh,
As
don't
if
hop on the
everything
train
is-
now. You guys all went. Nobody said it.
I
Okay.
I DM'd her, or maybe it wasn't a DM, but it was a message. So
Yeah, I saw that.
that's really
Well-
unfortunate, though. I do hope you get better, Nikki.
Yeah. What's happened? Okay. Oh,
Steve,
thank you,
man,
and-
thank you, brother.
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate
Steve, you're
that.
awesome.
Real quick, I know we're kind of shilling for Steve right now, because that's what we do on this channel. We just shill. But Steve is again, we shouted him out in the video a couple weeks ago. He's just always been great behavior. He's informative. He constantly is here every single week without fail. He's on all the videos. He's always making the chat a pleasant place. So, big shout outs to Steve.
Yeah, and also of course to everyone in our chat as well. And,
No, just
well,
Steve.
Fine, just Steve. Okay, just Steve. Actually, no, not to everyone, because also to Ortadunya, thank you to all the Turkish viewers who've come in today. What how do you say thank you in Turkish?
Teşekkürler.
No. Teşekkürler. No.
Yeah, it was good actually.
Okay, Teşekkürler to all the Turkish fans out there for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. We all really appreciate it. And until the next time, my friends, goodbye.